Well, welcome everyone. I can't wait for our time together here. I have been wanting to do this for years and I'm so glad that the time has been right. We're in the month right now as we thought of the idea of celebrating grandmother's birthday or the wonderful spirit guide that I channel, and I've been channeling actively since 1989. But a lot of people don't know a lot about my personal history and how I kind of got started, or what I fondly say, we wouldn't be here unless these two women, Barb Susan Booth and Evelyn MacKay, didn't pave the way for us all. And of course, joining us as well, always many of you will be familiar with our wonderful Karen Gaborik, who is the host of our Good News podcast show. And so Karen is awesome at answering and asking questions. One of our most senior students, and just really you've got a zest and a curiosity for life as well. And both Barb and Evelyn, maybe I'll start by introducing you to Karen. Karen grew up in the north. I think most of us grew up on the land and in the north, and is from Alaska originally, and has always been passionate about nature. She was worked her way up through the education system, was the superintendent of all of Alaska, of the world, and has been just an avid student of ours and taken most of our classes that we were saying earlier, Karen, since really, was it 2002? Or I'm trying to remember when.
No, actually, it's been more recent than that, 2017.
2017. Okay, great, great. Yeah. Anything you'd want to add so the lovely ladies get to know who you are?
Oh, no, just happy to be here. I'd certainly have heard both of your names before in conversation with Lori, and excited to meet you. And I think, like Lori said, even those of us who've taken classes with her and spent, a fair amount of time with Lori don't necessarily, we've heard about her beginnings and, but haven't necessarily met the people who were super formative in her life. So this is exciting. Yeah.
Yes, yes. I'm excited as well, for sure. Well, I'll start with Evelyn, introducing you, Evelyn. Evelyn MacKay is, well, again, anybody who is local, she's the grandmother of therapeutic touch in our world, in our universe. I originally met you, Evelyn, and you can help me fill in the blanks if I'm wrong. I believe we were on the board of Planned Parenthood together way back in, I had to look up my notes, like back in 1978 when I was just first in Guelph, a young university student. So that's where I met you and your wonderful partner Ken. And that hearing about what you were interested in and opening up the door, you talked about therapeutic touch. And so I remember at the ripe old age of 19, I was in a therapeutic touch course with you as my teacher. And like, I'm pretty sure my mouth was open the entire time. There's invisible energy there. We can feel it. There's this kind and loving woman that's teaching us all about it. She's not scary. There's ethics with therapeutic touch. And of course, being a nurse in your background and with ethical behavior, it was like, it was just a whole door opened to me about energy and ethics with energy. And you've been a presenter at some of our workshops when we had our health network. If that little 6-year stint, we had a health network before I turned to soul intuition. Both you and Barb have presented at our conferences, our public information talks, and we've kind of stayed in touch over the years. I believe I was the keynote speaker at in Toronto's Therapeutic Touch Conference back in 2000 when I was starting to teach medical intuition. And we've just kind of stayed in touch over the years in so many different ways. And so that's, to me, that part of opening that door. If it wasn't for you, that we none of us would be sitting here. None of us would be learning about intuition the way we are learning at Inner Access 101. And Barb, we were kind of back and forth yesterday trying to figure out how we first met. I thought we met through a wonderful colleague that I'll introduce in a moment in spirit, Pauline McDonald at the Human Service Community, but you were thinking it was through the Board of Ed. Is that where we first met? Okay. So I guess you were with me just a year before that, energetically. So I had done one of my work placements at the Board of Ed, and Barb hails from a background in education, psychology, and yeah, I was just, again, maybe 20 at that time doing my master's. And then we crossed paths, instantly hit it off, started teaching classes together in mostly forgiveness, is what I remember.
And
Forgiveness
parenting.
and relationships with our
Yeah,
parents and
yeah.
anger and conflict, which was, conflict was a big thing with the board as well. And it was in 1989 when I was first met grandmother in my journal writing, which most people who read about grandmother know that I was just, I thought 100% it was Lori making up an archetype. Grandmotherly figure, going through a difficult time in my own life, following my best social work advice, don't go insane, write in your journal. And so I was writing back and forth to grandmother all along, thinking it was just an archetype. I was making up a characterization to have a private figure to talk to. Then I just couldn't stand it. It was so amazing. Grandmother was so wise. And I called Barb up and said, "Can I read you some of this journal writing? It's just amazing." To which Barb's like, "Oh, well, I think you're channeling that. I think grandmother is really your grandmother from the 1400s, and you're just channeling wisdom." And I was like, "What's channeling?" I had never heard of the term. And so I think you have every book in your library, I'm sure even now, known to humans. So she probably handed me the two books that existed on the planet at that time in the 80s about channeling. And I was like, okay, yeah, you can turn it on and off. It's a connection with the spirit world. I could go for this. And then fondly, probably a year later, Barb invited me to a dinner at her house she was always putting together, always networking, still is, still does, and presented me with a lovely journal. And then after dinner, I got to tuck away and journal, channel grandmother for the wonderful colleagues that she had invited to the dinner. You and I have different recollections of that. I recall that I didn't know that was happening, but you probably would have told me it was happening. I was just coming for the lovely dinner, so I might not have heard that.
And I thought I was bringing you opportunities to practice your skills.
Well, and of
Um,
course
so like it's a present.
well, it was a present because look, here we sit. Here we
Then
sit
oh,
decades later, and if you had not have given me that terrifying present, I wouldn't be here teaching and still channeling grandmother daily. Now we're looking at 45 years later, which is amazing.
yeah,
The,
45
the
years.
friend we were just mentioning earlier, my third mentor and pioneer in this field is Pauline McDonald, who, of course, both Susan and Evelyn we have many, many fond interwoven memories of Pauline. And Pauline was 35 years my senior. And just as soon as we met again at the communication workshops, just instant friendships. It didn't matter that I was barely 20 and she was like, a very refined woman. And she was a nurse with background. She was always about trusting our bodies and listening to our bodies and honoring our bodies. And again, there was just this gentleness with Pauline and this confidence. If you were in a room with her, everything was fine. Didn't really matter. Just so sweet and so impish. You know,
She was, she,
there's many impish stories I could tell, but would need her family's permission. So I won't tell those impish stories. But she was into Feldenkrais and really pioneering and bringing the introduction of body to us in our own wonderful way. And a few years ago, she passed away. But as Evelyn, you were saying earlier, just mentioning her name, you felt like she was with us, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
And
that's
Lori, both Evelyn and myself spoke at Pauline's funeral.
beautiful.
So it was like a powerful opportunity to honor our friend.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yes, and I was sick. I would have been there as well. I was there in spirit that day. Yeah, beautiful. So, whatever we would like to talk about, to share, to talk about intuition, our own experiences, our shared experiences, anything you want to share about grandmother, any fond memories. Karen, you jump in with questions as well. I just want to say, again to our listeners and to our students in particular, it's like these women they blazed the trail
Mhm.
and you wouldn't have what you have available from us without their pioneering efforts and their impact in my life. So, yay. Thank you. I love you both so much.
Thank you.
Mm.
I have a most amazing recollection of going to your house one day, being invited, Laurie, to your house to speak to some people. You were living then on not Kathleen Exhibition.
Okay.
Doesn't matter.
Yes, I
Um,
would say I could tell you the year if you tell me where I was. Yes. Yes.
yes, and I was in the early afternoon. I was washing the ceiling, which I've probably never done since, in my back entry. And we had the previous week been in Nova Scotia, and I had visited a native community and bought a basket, a beautiful basket. And I had put it on the shelf in that back room. And as I was on the ladder washing the ceiling, I heard a voice say to me, knowing that I was going to Laurie's that afternoon at 3 o'clock, take her the basket. I thought, oh, I don't think so. But the
Yes.
voice was so commanding that I took my brand new basket when I went to see Laurie. She met me at the door and she said, oh, grandmother has sent me a basket. And I said, no, she hasn't. I didn't know grandmother at that point. I hadn't met her, but she obviously met me and knew that
Bring
I
her the basket. I love it. That's a great story. Yes, and I had that basket for years and years and loved the basket. That was one of the very first instructions, probably in that commanding voice, that I received even before I met grandmother. I kept dreaming of being in the Stone Road Mall, which is our local mall, and there was this elderly Native woman being very, very specific on how I was to make a basket, and I had to make it from memory and use my feet to hold the different pieces of material. To the point after dreaming it through three nights in a row, I went down to the river and got some dogwood. Somehow knew to soak it in my bathtub, didn't read anything about it, and sat with how I had dreamed she had taught me to make a basket and made my first basket. So every year I like to try to make one, just again to keep fresh with it. And I taught one of my daughter-in-laws how to do that last year. She's like, "Can grandmother teach me how to make a basket?" So thank you for that wonderful memory.
it was a very strong memory because I loved the basket too. And I didn't know when I bought it that it wasn't for me.
Mm.
So there was a little hint of something to come. And I'm so glad I obeyed it because that gave me another in with Laurie and understanding her better and understanding myself better too and trusting. That's one thing that I think both these ladies have taught me is trust.
Mm.
Trust. We've talked about it a lot and trust in the self. The worst that can happen is that you one day find out that you might have been wrong or got the message a little wrong. But to listen is never wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. And Laurie, I have a memory very, very, very early. You and I went for dinner at a little place on the main street in Guelph. I forget the name of it. It's not there.
Babelfit. Yeah.
Yeah, Babelfit.
It's not
No,
there anymore.
no, but there was still another. Anyway,
Okay.
say it's not Babelfish, but
Oh.
it's the idea. Anyway, so we're busy visiting, and I keep wanting to hear more about grandmother. And you're still a little shy about grandmother because it's all brand new, like really brand new.
Mm.
So we got this, I think I got the idea actually. The only plate thing we had to write on was the paper serviettes at the restaurant. So I asked you a question and you answered from grandmother on the paper
Onto the
serviette.
napkin.
And yeah, and it was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And so that introduced me to the depth of wisdom that grandmother had to start with. And I was so thrilled, and I wanted everybody I knew to have a turn.
Mhm.
I
Thanks
think
for
that's why I
everybody.
gathered those people at dinner. so they could have a turn with you because I was so excited.
Hmm.
And that's continued for 40 years.
Well, obviously, yes. You are always very good at making introductions of very amazing people to other amazing people. So I think both of you, well, probably all four of us share that same talent. Oh, thank
It's very necessary to do that, to always have your ears open to someone who has an interesting idea or an interesting thought or a challenging thought.
Yeah,
It spurs us on to listen more carefully ourselves
absolutely.
Yeah.
and to
And
trust.
yeah, I like that you brought up trust, Evelyn, because that was the sort of edge that we all had to go through for a while, trusting that we were doing something legitimate, that wasn't just new agey fun, that it had a spiritual depth that needed to be honored. And when we talked to each other, we really appreciated that. And we could share our own experiences comfortably because we trusted the company we were in, as
Yeah.
Evelyn
Yeah.
mentioned. And that was so precious because a
Yes.
lot of people didn't. There's a lot of people I never talked to about what I did and still do.
Oh, I don't think any of us know, including Karen, know anything about people making fun of you or mocking you or judging you or nothing for any of these newer ideas.
Well,
Hmm.
in the old times, it was odd. Nowadays, it's almost common sense. It's mainstream because you turn on the rate on the,
Anything.
whatever. I was going to say TV, but that would show how old I am. I don't do TV anymore. But it's like past life issues come up with near-death experiences, and you can just turn and listen to people. And before you'd sort of whisper it because you didn't know who to talk to. Now, oh, okay, I'll watch that today.
Hmm.
So we were entering an era where it wasn't common, and and it became so common if we
Yes.
wanted to find it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think very reassuring to other people who don't have a clue about this sort of thing. And I often hear, I'm in this village now of 900 people who are all seniors, and I talk very little about it, believe me, because I can't be bothered educating all these old people unless the occasion comes up. But I've had people say to me, you're really crazy. I say to them always, I know, isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Because here is a whole other avenue that you might not have walked. And what if? What if? So gently, you can allow yourself to be vulnerable
Yeah.
because at my great age of 89, I don't give a damn what people think of me. It's too late. And
It's
so
too late.
I have to take the risk of introducing somebody to a new idea. Once I'm in here and I've gotten myself sort of stable and integrating into the community, uh, I have the sense that it doesn't serve me or creation to be too shy anymore.
Yeah.
Going to do it and not worry about what people think of you because
No,
it doesn't matter.
it
Yeah,
doesn't.
but you grew into that at 89. I'm just
Yeah,
80 and I haven't grown into that yet. I'm still a,
other stuff.
You're still a baby at 80.
It's time.
I'll get there though. I'll get there.
This
Can
is
I
this
ask
is
Barb
why
a
I'm always
question?
so inspired. It's okay when I grow up. When I grow up, it's good. Keep paving the road for all of us.
Yes.
Karen, any questions that you might have for Barb,
Yeah.
Evelyn?
Well, I was hoping to ask Barb a question, maybe just a little bit more. Again, based on what you just described about, back in 1989, some of these ideas and just the whole experience of intuition being something maybe that was something that you kept fairly private. And clearly you and Lori had a relationship where you were willing to share with that, but could you talk a little bit more about, when you heard about her journaling, what led you to suggest she explore the channeling aspect of that a little bit more? Like how,
Well,
how did you know that, and what had you encourage her to continue down that road?
well, I've been interested in this field a lot longer than before I met Lori.
Mhm.
Because
Right.
Lori's a lot younger than me, I think.
I'm the baby at
I
65.
but Lori and I, our kids are close to the same age. Because
Okay.
when my son was 5 and 6, I can remember giving Lori the stuff because kids outgrew stuff in almost a minute. So Lori had a lot of the stuff that my son had because we had boys. And so like we were in the same ballpark in the parenting thing. And we were also in the same ballpark with spiritual interest in all this work. So I had done this, I had been taking courses before and meeting a lot of people that were interested in intuition and healing and the edge of things, really for a long time.
Spirituality. It was a huge, huge new
Yeah.
new
New
conversation.
thing. And, way back, Karen, when we were first doing HSC, I mean, the big deal that we learned was how to have feelings in our body and how to speak about them. I mean, that was like 40 years ago. And that was a big deal at the time.
It was.
So even in the
See, just for
70s,
parents' sake, is was a human service community, and they taught communication workshops again, which we
yeah,
all
Okay.
then. But that was pioneer.
it was pioneering. And Pauline and I ended up rewriting one of the manuals for them. I mean, we got so involved teaching it. Well, that was the beginning of something risky, talking about feelings out loud. Ooh. So we entered this whole field of confidence and confidence in spiritual and energy in a long time ago. So it was in stages, I would say. As I looked back, there were sort of decades. You first learned about feelings, then you learned about your body, then you learned about energy, and then you learned about whatever energy of any kind, like flower essences or whatever. I mean, just lots of it.
Therapeutic touch.
Absolutely had to have therapeutic touch. Evelyn was our teacher, and I knew nothing about that at the time. So that whole healing came into the next thing. So the channeling business was familiar to me. And I had actually taken some courses in Toronto from Bart Smith, who channels this energy called Dr. Williams. He's still doing it. So I had had some lessons from him.
Those
And just about a month ago, I found this journal that I had been channeling this stuff on petroglyphs. I mean, really, honestly, a whole book of it, drawing them, channeling from the petroglyph. Well, anyway, a lot of it I've forgotten, Karen, to be honest, but they come back in little memories, in little things. So I knew something about it. I knew how good Lori was at it. I
Mm.
knew right off that Lori's such a sincere, honest person that she wasn't making anything up. She almost couldn't. Had too much
Right.
integrity. And so I could feel the value of Lori's energy with grandmother and the truth of it. Like Evelyn said, we were struggling to find truth, but we learned to find it in our bodies. That's
Right.
truth.
yeah,
Lori's got it.
yeah, yeah.
And who knew that she was going to make a whole career out of it? It might
Right.
have just
Yeah.
been a little private
Mm.
Thing on the
addition,
side.
a little detail.
No.
Right.
And
That
that's
was
what when I met grandmother first, she like when I probably a few months after and I started to believe it was real, she said, this is about our part of changing the world is going to be about teaching other people how to trust themselves. And from the word go, there wasn't like a 5 year in commitment. It was from the word go, it's about volume of people. We need a lot of people trusting themselves, kind of like, are you in? well, of course I was already in, but that was like, okay. So every year when we sit together and it's like, okay, is there anything we should be shifting? Any other new direction? How do we get more people? How do we get more people trusting themselves? Because as we found out, you know, in a smaller community, and I'm sure throughout the world in smaller communities, it really makes a difference. Knowing we're not alone, knowing that there's more out there. And, you know, Karen, you said something beautiful, you know, about wanting to come on board and help a little bit more. I don't know if you remember the exact words, but um, do you want to speak to that, or do you want me
No,
to
I have
tell
to
you what
think
I
about, I mean, I know what
remember?
we're talking about, but it's like remembering the exact phraseology is
Well, just the difference it had meant to you and why you want to get behind more people as well, trusting themselves.
right. Well, yeah, I mean, all the skills and even just the awareness. I mean, just starting there with awareness that I have learned through your classes and has made such a significant difference in my life. And, you know, genuinely wanting other people to have the opportunity to, you know, have that experience as well. And then, you know, if people choose to take it further, you know, then there's so many wonderful platforms that you've built to, you know, build those skills even further. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe a question for Evelyn, I guess on that note, you know, it, it feels like intuition and awareness and, you know, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff about, you know, being in touch with your body and, you know, even embodied experiences, right? I was just reading something the other day, you know, you like, you know, it's people seem to really value getting in touch with your body as you move through maybe trauma or something like that. But it's interesting that still there's this shroud of hesitancy around sharing that with people. And I wonder, I mean, do you sort of, you know, do you feel like maybe we're turning a corner because it feels like the language is out there and it's so, like you said, it's so much easier to find this information now, but almost everybody that I talk to in Lori's classes is hesitant. We're still hesitant. So it just makes me wonder, like, at what point are we just just willing to be out there? I mean, it seems so obvious, trust yourself, right? But it's for some reason there's still a hesitancy there to talk about it.
I think
Yeah.
that comes with uh, it comes with being afraid of being right.
Oh,
Comes with being afraid that there might be something more. And so I find in this community that I'm in, there's a lot of religion, you know, different kinds, and some
Yeah.
very, very strongly embedded. So you want to be careful. You know, it doesn't serve to upset those folks. So you sort of soften your way around and make yourself known, but not in a pervasive way.
hmm.
And I find so many people in here where I live are ill because we're all old. uh, and that's the time when I can get my finger in the door with a little therapeutic touch first, you know, to relieve pain. And yes, I will come, or hospice will send me to someone in this community. And gradually the word spreads. I don't think there are 10 people in here who know. And I've written a book about my experiences, and I don't share it in the library or anything. But slowly, you know, someone will say to me, "Oh, I hear you treated Linda's husband. Could you, would you help me with this?" And so just easy with because old people are, they think they know what's going to happen, or they hope they do, so they don't want to be having new ideas. Don't give me this at age 90. I don't want to hear this. but but it does happen, it does affect the family then. And it teaches me where people are. One woman I was treating who was feeling better of her illness, and she asked me not to come anymore to treat her. And I thought, she's so afraid to be moved out of her. She wants to die, so she doesn't want anything that makes her feel better. So I said, "You're absolutely right. I should not come. And if you ever do want me to come again, I will." And she chose MAID and left this life. So I understood because I could feel her anxiety. her childhood, her restrictive parents and her fears. And she had made some sort of a comfort for herself. And I chose not to disturb that
Mm.
because it doesn't serve her. She needs to die in the peace she chooses. So that's one thing I've learned as I've gotten older is to be patient with other people who might be horrified at what I'm doing or what I believe.
Yeah.
Hard to change when you think you've got it made or you think you know what's happening. And then somebody comes along and pricks your balloon, and oh my God, what do I do with that?
You bring
And
them, you bring them a basket.
That's what you
I'm
do.
patient
Right?
because I know this is ongoing. This is ongoing. And sometimes I'll get a word or a sentence in my mind when I'm treating someone of why it is I have been brought into this transaction. Oh, I knew her then, or this, she knows this, or she's afraid of this. And that's very helpful because uh, being kind uh, is the essence of everything we do, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's the truth that we all need to understand. So if someone doesn't agree, I can say, "You are so smart. You've thought this through. Isn't that great?" I don't care.
Yeah, not push it. Yeah.
And not push it. No, especially uh, with somebody who is very sick. I'll know if there's a I'll know if there's a little crack that I can get in. And it may just say, "You are loved," or "You are cared for." And I do my treatment and leave.
A very patient angel you have been. With
Well, you learn that what's important, because we all have lots of chances to come and go and come and go.
That's great. Well, Karen, when you ask, you got me thinking here when you ask, are we turning a corner, in trusting ourselves? And it's been, it's been a very interesting journey to be in this field so actively so long myself, even though I feel quite young still, by way of seniority here. What I get worried about sometimes is people who are just younger, like I'm talking about in their teens or their 20s or their early 30s, and how much they're searching for more, which is great. So the search is there, but then there's so much out there that they could just, ping and bip and bang and, here and there. And there's so much out there. And there's still such a it feels like the spirituality part and the self-discovery part is sort of getting lost with a lot of the hype around spirituality, the hype about intuition and do this and do that. And I understand that the venues that are out there, the platforms are pretty hypey. I get that. But at the same time, what I've been saddened about is the regurgitation of some of the things that we may have even come across in the 70s, 80s, certainly into the 90s, the regurgitation of some of that, but then still fairly heavily laden with fear and laden with, if we don't do this, we're not going to make it. And it's like, oh my gosh, that is so old. And we, from our classes, we don't have anywhere fears nowhere near anything we teach. So it makes me
Right.
a little bit sad that we didn't have a lot to look at coming up in the field, but now the youth, and I'm saying youth meaning 15 to 35, they have too much to look at. So then there's still that, what do I trust? Am I coming and going? And are we all missing the train to enlightenment? Or do I do this class or do I do that? And I don't know. You've been out there researching around more than probably any of us have. Do you find that that's still um, a challenge? Maybe why it's harder for people to just relax and trust themselves.
Are you asking, is that question to me?
Yeah, thanks, Karen.
Yeah. I find, again, the social media and so many platforms, and I find that a lot of it is performative, which again is true of so much that's available, right? It's very performative, which I think in essence, there's a lot of breadth and there's a lot of people gathering all types of things and stitching it together and sort of creating a very catchy, hypey performance, but there's not a lot of depth, to what you find. And so, I might find somebody and I think, oh, this is interesting. Like this person, really seems like they're onto something here. And then I'll start digging into it. And it's a pretty shallow presentation of what actually tapping into your intuition in any sort of way is like. And I think you start to get that sense of, oh, they've just pulled lots of strings together, lots of bits and pieces, and have put it together in a pretty nice package. I also think some of that plays into this idea of we're looking for a quick fix. And so I think people search for these things when they're in pain. I don't know that that's, it's probably a too big of a generalization, but maybe to Evelyn's point, when you're in pain or you're not feeling well or you've had a difficult experience, you really do want to trust yourself, but you're struggling with how to do that. So then, you find something, um, uh, and it's, I don't think it takes too long to figure out that, it's not sort of a one and done. Intuition is not a one and done, sort of event. It's not an event, right? And maybe that's something, Lori, that I've learned from you and from grandmother is, it's a skill and it's a practice and certainly available to everybody, but it really is, those different tools are things you learn through practice. And so, anyway, I don't know if that answers your question,
Mhm,
but
mhm.
so I don't, I find that there's lots available, but there's not too much that has very significant depth to it. So,
I think the
yeah.
same thing, Karen, actually. And it seems to me even now when I'm always learning something just out of me. And
Mhm.
I,
Constant learner.
what I've come to realize just, in the last couple of years is that it's the quality of the teacher that draws me. And if somebody's genuine and mature and authentic, it changes everything about what the course is and what you're learning. And I honestly believe that that's what Lori's courses are so different than everybody else's. She comes with the teacher integrity and the maturity and the kindness that is not common nowadays. The courses may be more common, but not the depth of the offering.
Mhm.
So I think that's the healthy thing that we need to be encouraging others to experience with the right teacher.
And I
Yeah,
think maybe just to put that in a different side of language, it's like, are you living it or are you just
that's
creating
right.
content to sell it? Because
Right. That's
so
exactly
much of
right.
the motivation today is creating content and figuring out how to monetize it. And there's not that
Absolutely.
depth of are
Yeah,
they actually living it?
that's right.
And I feel like I have a lot of grace for people. I mean, I appreciate anybody who's like, trying these things out and is on their journey as well. But it doesn't take long to figure out that some people actually aren't on the journey. They're
Yeah,
just selling the sparkly parts of the journey.
yeah. Maybe they're not quite ready.
Which true, right? Yeah. So that might have been a little judgy, but
Oh no, I just thought of that.
yeah,
Well,
yeah.
in Barbie, a big part of your once you well semi-retired from your psychology position at the board, and then you had your Sacred Wisdom Center, which was amazing, Sacred Wisdom Center, and that was part of what you did. You brought teachers with authentic messages together, and introduced them to our community. So you've been doing the same thing ever since I've known you.
Well, I've been collecting them. You've been being it. No, well, I've been being it as a collector. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
beautiful.
I think too, Karen, let me just say, there is a maturity of spirit that is needed
Yeah.
through various incarnations before just a single sentence might touch someone when they'll come back and say, "What did you mean by that?" Some of those sentences just roll off people, but I see it in my grandchildren and great grands that it doesn't take much for them to come and say, "What did you mean?" How does that happen? And if you're just easy with that, I they trust you to come and they'll come to you again. And when you get as old as me, they may have come 5 or 6 times and say, "What did you mean by that?" Or help me understand what you said. So it's a good place to be. It's a good place for you to be, I think.
That's beautiful. So, any other stories about, how grandmother has particularly touched your lives or anything that she said to you? Maybe not necessarily in a personal teaching, but just anything. I know, Evelyn, we reconnected a couple years back. You were reviewing The Resting Place, which is, a book that just really, I look at it every few years. It's like, oh, that's such an amazing teaching. I don't remember that. Meanwhile, I've read it 1,000 times and wrote it. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
For me, I think what I remember in our last visit, especially, is the encouragement in trusting the self,
Mm.
the encouragement in looking in within and knowing you have within you what you need, or the skill to search out the person who can provide it for you.
Mm.
That was always a very interesting uh, session for me, and to allow the self to be led into those places.
Hmm. Like being the expert on yourself. Hmm.
Well, I guess probably that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and trusting. It's a wonderful place to be, really, to be open-minded and to have those quick intuitions that remind you of what grandmother would have said to us,
Hmm.
trusting the self
Hmm.
and having realizing you have the same access to knowledge that she does.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, yes,
Please and
yeah,
thank you.
yes. It's important. It's important.
Yeah, I think so. You mentioned the resting place. So what year did you write that,
I
Lori?
wrote it in 94 and we published it in 96. And it's
Okay,
based on a lot of the teachings from 89 to
from earlier. Well, yesterday, out of the blue, of course, I found this letter from energy healer that I met in Glastonbury in England. And there's one sentence in it. I think I found it yesterday by chance so I could read it. He said to me, I loved your letter and especially the book you sent me. Please tell Lori I greatly appreciated reading it and appreciated both her message and grandmother's. There's so much we all still have to learn. So there you go.
Oh, wow.
That's amazing. And that was, he said, February the 18th, 1997.
Oh, so the year after we published it. Oh my
That's
God.
when this was written.
I love it.
Isn't that amazing?
And
Yeah.
it is practically archaic. Oh.
I like how these things show up just in the right timing.
Mhm.
The
Right.
Yeah.
other thing about that is that you never know who you're going to teach halfway around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does
Yes.
that happen?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry, can you repeat that last one, Evelyn?
How does that happen? You know, it's quite magical, really.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why we like it.
Yeah.
Yes.
The world is not quite as big as we think it is, and yet it is bigger and bigger and bigger beyond as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And I just want to give Karen a chance if there's any other questions that you might have, again, or just any reflections that you have, um, being in the field, of big career change to really walking your path as well. Yeah.
Well, maybe a question first, maybe to Evelyn or and Barb too. But Evelyn, in your experience, we were talking about medical intuition and Lori's, learning from grandmother, and of course you've had so much experience in therapeutic touch. Like, what have been some really significant changes that you think are so important that have happened over that time from, maybe its inception to now?
Yeah. For me, it's been quite exciting because you start in with so little, just an urge to do something, and then it grows on you, I think. And the meditation, I meditate daily, so as often as I can, and that is very helpful because I find now if I'm thinking about a client or someone who has approached me for help, I get the answer. I hear the answer from my high self to, oh, that's the answer to that enigma. Now I get that. That that kind of inner growth has been really exciting for me, and it doesn't happen often, but it does happen when I'm concerned about somebody, or if there's a call on me to speak about something. So I suppose I waited, my high self waited till I was able to handle it well. Not be too excited about it or not to be sharing what shouldn't be shared, because sometimes you don't want to implicate anybody or color the feeling that other people might have towards someone, but it helps me to understand how the world works.
Yeah.
That's that's the best learning I think I've had.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's also what I've appreciated over all of these years with both of you and with Pauline as well. Like, because of who you are, period, because of your professional background, because of the modalities and the work that you've been involved in, there's always been this really strong ethical
Yes.
vein that has gone through that. And that's might be part of what I miss when I hear some of the more modern versions of, here I grabbed three things I like, I shook it up, I made it my own, and ding, here it is, in bright color. That there may not be the experience, there may be, obviously with some, but with a lot of people, they may not have the experience to know what is ethical use of intuition, what is not, when do you say something, how do you frame it, how do you explain it, and when do you just be quiet? Or even as we teach our students, it's like, don't even open your intuition broadly unless you know where you're going, for the wisdom, and unless you have that person's permission, because these days, as time goes by, it's just everywhere. It's so much easier to use your intuition. So I feel strongly obligated to make sure we bring the ethical standards that's been part of my heritage here, and what we really, we thump pretty hard in our classes, as Karen knows. So I feel that that's hopefully going to stay. I want that part to stay in the evolution of the field.
It has a lot to do too with the maturity of this spirit within.
Hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry to introduce that so late in the conversation, but
Yeah.
there there are some people who come to class and it's so almost superficial that it's a game, sort of, as you've said. They don't really know what they're looking for, or understand, or able to understand, perhaps in some ways. So those people will benefit maybe in another life.
Yeah.
And know that there is something.
I'd like to just say that um, last year, doing the SOAR program that Laurie teaches was really important for me too, even though I've done this field for
Forever.
50 years.
Mhm.
It's like Laurie teaches the ethics behind it in every course I've ever taken with Laurie. And um, and has such integrity around it that it raises the whole program to
Yeah.
another level. And people learning from you, Lori, can't get away with showing off or doing something that's not appropriate. You can't do that. No, no.
You can't get
So
it.
I think that's the difference in the courses that you offer. And I just like to say it doesn't matter how much we've done in this field. it's a good thing to keep learning. And I would encourage people to do the SOAR program, you
Mm,
know,
thank you.
really, honestly. It brings life back into the whole thing.
Mm. Well, in an ongoing community too, as we know, Karen.
Yeah,
Just
yeah, absolutely.
that was a bit of a surprise to me. I thought, okay, well, we'll make, ongoing learning and practice available. And it's like, oh, I think that's the main reason for the course. Yeah,
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 yeah.
beautiful. I
That
don't,
is,
sorry, go
that
ahead, Evelyn.
it's a very, well, it's so important because I think, I think everyone needs to know that there's someone to go to.
Mm,
There is someone to go to. And when you teach and people talk about what you've taught, it gives them hope that there is someone I can take a class with or study with who can be trusted,
mm,
Yeah.
who
mm.
can be trusted with me, you know,
Yeah,
because everyone thinks themselves to be quite fine, and they are, but they want to have the best.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
that's
so it's good. It's good.
so we'll just keep on going. Well, when thinking about keep on going and, if we imagined, and Karen, I'd like you to do this too. I'm just making this up. You know me, I'm always making up things in my eyes for exercises. It's like if we imagined passing the baton, forward to try like not the next generation, but like the next group of people that are carrying on with trusting themselves, what would go with your baton pass? What would you want to make sure the next runner takes forward that you've learned from your whole experience in life with spirituality, with, intuition, with trusting ourselves, with knowing darn well there's more than meets the eye here on this earth and beyond. Barb, what would you make sure was in your baton pass?
Well, just what came to me in that moment was the idea that you brought up in the SOAR course about what is your organ of truth. And
Mm,
for me, it was tears. And
mm,
so when tears just, I can't make myself cry, but when tears start coming, I know I'm on a true path. I'm on a true issue. I
mm,
know it's the truth of something. And if I'm reading and tears are coming out or dropping on the page, I draw little tears on the side so I remember this is the truth. I don't read the whole book again. I
just
mean, there's a
behind the tears.
yeah, there's just where the tears were. And so that was what I would say I would pass on and teach and do. Yes, that's
Mm.
my answer.
That's wonderful. That's beautiful to pass forward to others. Thank you. Evelyn, what would be on your baton passing forward to the next team of making the world go round?
Yeah, I would encourage people always to teach with kindness.
Mm,
Uh, in the last class I was doing with the friend that I work with, teaching spirituality. We were sitting in the kitchen, in my kitchen here, and we were talking about what we wanted to do in the next session. And I suddenly felt very strong energy behind me. And I looked at her and she could see who was there. And I said, "It's Jesus, isn't it?" And she said, "Well, yes, it is." And he's saying to me, "The most important thing I taught when I was in the earth was kindness." And I thought, I passed that on to the 40 students that day and said, we're this is your lesson today. This
mm,
is your lesson. And whether people agree with you or don't agree with you, it's a very even if they're angry with what you say, if to respond in kindness is a very important thing to pass on, I think.
mm,
You
beautiful.
never lose. You never lose.
Yeah,
Thank
great.
you. Thank you. Well, thanks for passing that kindness baton forward. Makes me think of our Stuart, who you all know. It's like, I think
Oh, yes.
was in that class a long time ago. He's the kindest person I know.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
beautiful. Thank you. Karen, what would you pass forward to the next runners with your baton?
I think today my awareness of intuition is all about integration of mind and body. And I spent so much of my life just because of cultural, what the culture and family and the media teaches you, disassociated from my body and being
Mm,
super successful, on that path until it just didn't work anymore. And I think these intuition courses have really, each one in its own way, in its own practice, has helped that sort of, I guess it's probably a reintegration of this brain that I valued and the world values with my body, which I didn't.
mm,
And coming to this understanding that the answers really are in the body, and there's this interplay there that's so important, and that I feel like is all of these different skills and practices has just helped um, build that more and more. So I'm certainly no expert, but it's a very different lens to go through life with.
make sure to bring your body along.
Right? And I mean, I would out of my mouth would come the words, I wish I could just get rid of my body because my brain, I get my brain, I'm good with my brain. My body is, I don't get it.
Yeah.
And yeah, so yeah, including my body in the conversation has made all the difference. And
Mm,
that's not just about medical intuition, that's about every single class and skill, right? There's always some grounding in emotion and the body and the experience of it. Maybe it's that experiential piece that
mm.
helps ground it in the body. That's just been invaluable. Yeah.
Perfect, perfect. Well, and as you're talking, Karen, and passing that baton, I can feel Pauline, who again, one of my original mentors, who taught me everything about body, even that I had a body similar to you. I would just happy living life from behind my eyes, like sitting in a little car, like body schmoddy. What that? It's just a bother. But Pauline was always there, always reminding us that the body is there. And I was thinking of her fondly because my body has gone through a lot, especially with all my different childbirths and, pretty banged up from all of them. But after my first cesarean, and I was like, crying. It's like, oh, I'm never gonna be able to run again, or this and that, and my body and everything was a little busted and broken. And she's like, just lay down. And I laid down, and she this calm, soothing voice. And then she puts her hand just gently on my belly, like, just above the pubic bone where the scar was. She goes, now lift your head. So I lifted my head. She says, could you feel that? Can you feel that move on my under my hand? It's like, yes. She goes, your body will be fine. Your muscles are still there. They just need time to heal. Tears and tears and tears. And I thought about it just like 2 or 3 days ago. And I was trying to work through something, and I just was, oh, I'll just start with the Pauline steps. Just move your head. And I just had my truth tears too. It was beautiful. So thank you, Pauline.
Thank you, Pauline.
And I think I mean, of course, I'm still, packaging up a whole bunch of batons to pass forward, everything we have on our website. But if I step back and just said, what would be the baton I would want to pass forward to anyone wanting to learn more about life, spirituality, themselves, their inner wisdom? It's like it would be, we need you. We need you. Don't wait for somebody to invite you to the party of life. Don't wait till you feel worthy. Don't feel like, we wait. We wait too long to know that there's more than meets the eye. And we need every single person, you know, just being brave enough to invite themselves to the party of life. And like, be be afraid to be right, be afraid to be wrong, be afraid. It doesn't, you don't have to be afraid of anything. There's nothing to be afraid of. Just invite yourself to participate in life, and then we'll have more brave people like you're seeing here today, like my wonderful mentors and teachers and friends. Like, if you didn't be brave and invite yourself both to the party of life. I wouldn't have done the same, and Karen wouldn't have done the same, and all of our 25,500 and counting students that we've taught to date because of the two of you and Pauline. Like that's a big, big pack of people who have found their way to us and have invited themselves to the party of life. So just everybody, please keep doing it. And we need you. We need you. We need good people in this world trusting themselves, and we need more company. Beautiful. So thank you both. Thank you, Karen, as well, for being here, for celebrating our teachers in life, our teachers in spirit, and celebrating grandmothers, some nice fond stories and memories, and others who are in spirit that have gone before us. I don't think that was an easy path, and let's keep making it easier and easier for people following behind us. But remember your ethics, remember your manners. Remember it's all about others, not you. Just remember that part, to serve and play, make the world a better place.
Lovely to have met you, Karen.
Oh, thanks. Yes, nice. So nice to have been invited today. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I wish we had more time with you.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, maybe in the future I'll make my way to Guelph again. I've been there once to visit with Lori, which was lovely. So I
yes,
imagine I'll be back. Yeah.
yes, you will. You will. When you come back around, we'll have a dinner where you can come as well.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And I've always got a place you can stay.
Oh, perfect. There
Yes,
we go.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barb, for that. You have hosted so many students and colleagues over the years. Appreciate that. Beautiful. Awesome. Well, we'll all do sort of wave goodbye so that Stu can catch that on the end, and that would be great.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.